Most people think money is the finish line. They're wrong. Dead wrong. Money is the starting gun. The real race begins the moment you have it, and most people collapse at mile 2. Here's what no one tells you. Wealth doesn't solve your problems. It exposes them. Like turning on the lights in a basement you've avoided for years. Every crack in your foundation suddenly visible. Every weak beam screaming under the new weight. You thought you needed money to be free, but freedom is gravitational force, and you just strapped a rocket to your back without checking if your bones can handle the G-force. Think of wealth like gravity. Not the gravity that holds you down, the gravity you create when you become massive. Suddenly you bend everything around you. People orbit you. Opportunities curve toward you. But here's the physics problem no one explains. The more mass you accumulate, the stronger your gravitational pull becomes. And if your core isn't dense enough, if your psychological structure isn't compressed and hardened under its own pressure, you don't become a star. You become a black hole, consuming everything, destroying everything, including yourself. I've watched this happen hundreds of times. Smart people, talented people, they hit their number, 7 figures, 8, sometimes 9. Then they implode. Not from external pressure, from internal collapse. Their personality couldn't scale with their bank account. Their character couldn't process the data rate of new possibilities. They got rich. Then they got hollow. Then they got destroyed. The lottery winner phenomenon isn't about financial literacy. It's about gravitational collapse. 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years. Not because they're stupid, because their psychological mass couldn't generate enough gravity to hold the wealth in orbit. The money scattered into space, took their marriages with it, their sanity, their identity. Some of them wish they'd never won at all. That should terrify you, because if you're building wealth intentionally, you're engineering a gravitational system, and most people are designing their collapse without realizing it. Your brain has a self-concept. Psychologists call it your ego identity. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are. For most of your life, you've been the person who needs to make it, the underdog, the striver, the one clawing toward better. That identity has protective mechanisms. It keeps you humble, hungry, focused on survival. Then you make it, really make it. And your brain experiences what researchers at Stanford Psychology Department documented in 2019 as Sudden Wealth Syndrome. Not a joke, an actual psychological phenomenon. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that regulates behavior and maintains consistent self-narrative, goes haywire. You have resources your identity wasn't built to process, like running diesel fuel through an engine designed for regular gas. The system breaks down. Here's what happens neurologically. Your brain's reward prediction error spikes. Dopamine floods your system, not from achievement anymore, but from possibility. You can buy anything, do anything, be anywhere. Your brain, evolved to survive scarcity, has no script for abundance, so it defaults to primitive programming, instant gratification, status signaling, dominance displays. You start making decisions your previous self would mock. The sports car you don't need, the watch that costs more than your first house, the entourage of people who appeared the moment your bank account changed. You're not becoming shallow. You're experiencing neurochemical hijacking. Your dopamine system, designed to reward survival behaviors, is now rewarding consumption behaviors. And consumption is an infinite scroll. There's always something more, someone with more, some experience you haven't bought yet. You're trapped in a loop. Spend, feel nothing. Spend more, feel less. The hedonic treadmill accelerates, and your identity, the core sense of who you are, starts fragmenting. Look at Mike Tyson, made over $400 million in his career. Bankruptcy by 2003. It wasn't the houses or the tigers or the cars. It was identity collapse. He was Iron Mike in the ring. Outside it, he was a kid from Brownsville who never built a self beyond boxing. The money amplified every unresolved trauma, every gap in his psychological structure. He tried to fill identity holes with material mass. Doesn't work. Can't work. Because identity isn't additive. It's architectural. The way out. Identity renovation before wealth accumulation, not after. Ask yourself right now, who am I when I don't need to prove anything? When survival is handled, what do I build? If you can't answer that, you're not ready for wealth. You're ready for a very expensive breakdown. Start small. Make decisions based on your future identity, not your current dopamine level. When you want to buy something, wait 72 hours.
If your brain still wants it after the dopamine clears, assess. Is this purchase from my evolved self or my reactive self? Your evolved self builds libraries. Your reactive self buys Lamborghinis. Both are fine, but know which one is driving. Here's a vicious irony. The moment you can afford to be irresponsible, your life demands maximum responsibility. Before wealth, your options were limited. That's constraint. Constraint is a decision-making gift. With 5 restaurants in town, choosing dinner is easy. With 5,000, it's paralyzing. Psychologist Barry Schwartz called this the paradox of choice. More options don't increase happiness, they increase anxiety. Because every choice carries opportunity cost, and your brain, now aware of all possible paths, can't commit to any single one without mourning the others. Wealthy people face this at scale, not just for dinner, for everything. Where to live, who to help, which opportunities to pursue. Every day becomes a trolley problem. Allocate resources here, they can't go there. Say yes to this person, you're implicitly saying no to 50 others. Your email inbox becomes a moral calculus. Every request is legitimate. Every opportunity has merit. And you, at the center, have to become a resource allocation engine. That's not freedom. That's governance. Your brain wasn't built for this. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for decision-making, experiences what neuroscientists call decision fatigue. Every choice depletes a finite cognitive resource. It's why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same shirt, why Obama only wore gray or blue suits. They're not being quirky. They're practicing cognitive resource management because they understand something crucial. At scale, trivial decisions are existential threats. Death by 1,000 choices. But it gets darker. Wealth creates what I call the responsibility vacuum. Pre-wealth, other people and systems made decisions for you. Your boss decided your schedule. Your landlord decided repairs. Your budget decided your options. You had autonomy within lanes. Post-wealth, the lanes disappear. You're driving in an open field. No road, no signs, just space. And you have to decide where to go. Every moment. For everything. Including other people's lives. Because now you have employees, or you're supporting family, or people are asking you to invest in their dreams. And every no you give is a potential future you're killing. Every yes is a responsibility you're shouldering. You're no longer managing your life. You're managing a complex system of dependencies. And if you haven't built the psychological infrastructure for governance, you'll do one of two things: become a tyrant or become a ghost.
The tyrant controls everything, micromanages, needs to approve every decision because they don't trust their own systems. They're not cruel, they're terrified. Terrified that if they delegate, if they step back, the whole structure collapses. So they squeeze tighter. Relationships suffer, health suffers. They become the bottleneck in their own empire. Howard Hughes, Steve Jobs in his worst years. Brilliant minds strangled by their inability to trust the systems they built. The ghost does the opposite. Abdicates, hires managers to manage managers, disappears to find themselves on some island. But here's the catch. You can't outsource your gravitational center. The system still orbits you. And if you're not present, if you're not providing consistent gravitational pull, everything spirals. Enron wasn't just fraud. It was absentee leadership. People doing whatever because the center wasn't holding. The ghost returns to ashes. Look at Warren Buffett. Still lives in the house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Still works from Omaha. Still answers his own phone sometimes. That's not folksy charm. That's systematic responsibility management. He built his life to minimize trivial decisions so he could maximize crucial ones. He's not cheap. He's cognitively efficient. His daily routine is a decision-making moat. Protects his anterior cingulate cortex from death by 1,000 cuts. The way out? Build systems before you need them. Pre-wealth, create frameworks for decisions. What's your policy on lending money to friends? Decide now. What's your criteria for investments? Write it down. What's your family support structure? Codify it. When wealth arrives, you're not making emotional decisions under pressure. You're executing predetermined frameworks. This isn't cold, it's sustainable. Because governance isn't about control. It's about creating consistent rules that free you to focus on what actually matters. And what matters is never the decision itself. It's the meta-decision. How do I build a life where good decisions are automatic and bad decisions are structurally impossible? Money warps every relationship you have. Like a massive object warping spacetime. People approach you differently, not consciously, not maliciously, but gravitationally. You're now a resource, an opportunity, a solution to their problems, and your brain, evolved to detect genuine connection for survival, suddenly can't tell the difference between real and transactional. Here's the neuroscience. Humans rely on theory of mind to navigate relationships. It's your ability to model what someone else is thinking, feeling, wanting. Pre-wealth, this system worked. You could generally tell who liked you versus who wanted something. Post-wealth, your theory of mind breaks. Because everyone wants something now. Even the genuine people, even your family. They might love you, truly, but they're also aware, consciously or not, that you can solve their mortgage problem, fund their startup, change their life with a signature. This creates what psychologists call relational ambiguity. You can't trust your instincts anymore. That new friend who's so interested in your life, are they interested in you or your portfolio? Your cousin who suddenly calls more, is it family or finance? The person who compliments your insight, do they mean it or are they positioning? Your brain goes into hyper-vigilance mode. Every interaction becomes a chess game. You're analyzing motives, running background checks, building walls. And walls, while protective, are isolating. You end up in what researchers at the University of British Columbia documented in 2016. Wealthy individuals report higher rates of loneliness despite larger social networks, more people around them, less genuine connection. Because connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trust. And trust, when you're wealthy, feels like liability. So you do what many wealthy people do. You retreat into your class. You only befriend other wealthy people. Not because you're elitist,
because they're the only ones who aren't warped by your gravitational field. They don't need your money. They understand your problems. You can complain about people always wanting something, and they nod instead of rolling their eyes. It's relief. But it's also a cage. You've traded authenticity for symmetry. You're safe, but you're sealed off from 99% of human experience. Watch what happened to Notch, the creator of Minecraft. Sold his company to Microsoft for $2.5 billion. Bought a $70 million mansion in Beverly Hills.
Then tweeted, "Hanging out in Ibiza with a bunch of friends and partying with famous people, able to do whatever I want, and I've never felt more isolated." He had everything except what he actually needed. Relationships that existed before the money. Relationships where he was Marcus, not the Minecraft billionaire. The distortion field destroys marriages too, not because wealth causes divorce, because it removes the constraints that forced cooperation. Pre-wealth, you and your partner were a team against scarcity. Shared struggle, shared goals. Post-wealth, you're two individuals with infinite options. Why compromise when you can afford not to? Why work through conflict when you can each have separate houses? Money removes the friction that creates intimacy. Sounds good in theory, devastating in practice. Because intimacy isn't built in ease, it's built in navigation. Two people choosing each other despite options. When options become infinite, choice becomes meaningless. 50% of marriages fail, but marriages where one partner receives sudden wealth? 75%. Not because money is evil, because the relationship's structural integrity was based on one gravitational system, and suddenly the physics changed. The couples who survive are the ones who renegotiate their relationship's foundation, who build new intimacy rituals, who create shared missions beyond survival. They don't just work on their marriage, they re-engineer it for different gravitational forces. The way out. Relationship archaeology before wealth. Map your current relationships honestly. Who was there before? Who understands you beyond utility? Protect those people like sacred artifacts. Make them non-negotiable. Create boundaries with new relationships, not walls. Boundaries. Here's a framework. For the first year of knowing someone wealthy, assume their interest is 60% you, 40% your resources. That's not cynical. That's realistic. If after a year of providing zero financial value, they're still around, still engaged, still genuine, upgrade them to trusted. But test it. Say no sometimes. Be unavailable. Be useless. See who stays. And for existing relationships, especially romantic ones, have the conversation now. When we have more resources, how do we stay us? Build agreements. Monthly dates where money is off limits as a topic. Annual retreats where you reconnect with who you were before. Wealth should expand your life, not replace it. But expansion without foundation is just explosion. For most of your life, your purpose was simple. Survive, then thrive. Every action had clear causality. Work hard, make money. Make money, gain security. Gain security, achieve freedom. It's a clean narrative, a ladder with visible rungs. Your brain loves this. The prefrontal cortex thrives on clear, goal-directed behavior. You wake up knowing what you're building toward. That gives you what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. You're driven from within because the target is clear. Then you hit the target. Really hit it. Financial independence, generational wealth. The ladder ends, and you're standing on the top rung looking around, realizing something horrifying. There's no next level. The game you spent decades playing is over. You won. Now what?
This is purpose collapse, and it's more psychologically devastating than poverty. Poverty gives you a clear enemy, lack. Wealth removes the enemy but doesn't provide a replacement mission. Your brain, still wired for goal pursuit, starts misfiring. You set arbitrary targets. Make another million, buy a bigger house, build a larger portfolio. But here's the neurological problem. Your dopamine system recognizes these as fake quests. They don't trigger the same reward response. Because your limbic system, the emotional core of your brain, knows you don't need them. You're running a treadmill, motion without progress, and your brain knows it. What happens next is what Viktor Frankl called existential vacuum. You have means, but no meaning, resources, but no reason. You start asking dangerous questions. Why am I doing this? What's the point? If I can have anything, what do I actually want? These aren't philosophical luxuries, they're psychological crises, because humans don't function well without purpose. We're meaning-making machines. Strip away the meaning, the machine breaks down. Depression rates among ultra-high net worth individuals are significantly higher than the general population. Not because money causes depression, because achievement without purpose causes depression. You spent 30 years climbing, and the view from the top is just more mountain. Everywhere. Forever. And you're exhausted. Not physically. Existentially. This is why so many successful people become obsessed with legacy, not because they're narcissists, because legacy is the only goal structure that survives wealth. You can't out-earn death, but you can build something that outlasts you. It's a psychological life raft. Look at Andrew Carnegie, became one of the richest men in history through steel, then spent the last 18 years of his life giving away 90% of his fortune. Built 2,509 libraries, funded universities, created foundations. Not because he felt guilty, because he recognized purpose collapse and engineered a new mission. He wrote, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." That wasn't morality. That was psychology. He understood that wealth without direction is spiritual death. So he directed it.
Gave himself a project bigger than accumulation. Saved his own sanity by building a legacy structure. But here's the trap. You can't build legacy by accident. And you can't wait until you're wealthy to figure out what you care about. Because by then, your capacity for genuine passion is often atrophied. You've spent so long optimizing for profit that you've forgotten how to optimize for meaning. You look at causes, charities, missions, and they all seem arbitrary. You can't feel which one matters because you've trained yourself not to feel, only to calculate. Your emotional muscles have atrophied. You're rich and numb. The way out. Purpose excavation during the climb, not after. Right now, while you're still building, ask yourself, if I had unlimited resources, what problem would I solve? Not what would I buy? What would I fix? In your community, in your industry, in the world. Write it down. Be specific. Now start solving it at your current scale. Don't wait for wealth to be generous. Be generous with your time now, your attention, your expertise. Because purpose isn't something you find. It's something you build. Repetition by repetition. And if you build it pre-wealth, it scales with your resources. You're not searching for meaning when you have money. You're amplifying work you already started. Carnegie didn't suddenly care about libraries when he got rich. He always valued education. Wealth just gave him the scale to match his values. Build your values now. Wealth will follow them.
And when it arrives, you won't collapse. You'll expand. Here's a dangerous equation. Money plus success in one domain equals your brain thinks you're competent in all domains. It's called the halo effect in psychology. You make millions in real estate, suddenly you think you understand cryptocurrency. You build a successful company, suddenly you're weighing in on geopolitics. You win at capitalism, suddenly you think you've unlocked human nature. Your brain generalizes competence, and wealth reinforces this illusion because people start treating you like you're smart about everything. They ask your opinion, not because you're qualified, because you're successful. Success becomes synonymous with wisdom in social perception. And here's the neurological trick. Your brain believes it. The more people defer to you, the more your prefrontal cortex starts encoding general competence as part of your self-schema. You're not consciously arrogant.
You're experiencing cognitive distortion. Your brain is getting false feedback data and incorporating it into your self-model. This is how smart people make catastrophically stupid decisions with their money. They venture outside their circle of competence, Buffett's term, and get destroyed. The tech founder who thinks they can flip houses. The hedge fund manager who thinks they can run a restaurant. The real estate mogul who thinks they can be president. Wait, scratch that last one. But you see the pattern. Competence in one high-stakes domain creates overconfidence in all domains. It's not stupidity. It's neurological overgeneralization. And wealth accelerates this, because wealth buffers consequences. Pre-wealth, you make a bad decision, you feel it immediately. Financial pain, social embarrassment, immediate feedback. Your brain updates its models. Post-wealth, you make a bad decision, your bank account absorbs it. You lose $100,000 on a stupid investment. Hurts, but doesn't destroy you. So your brain doesn't fully encode the lesson. You get to keep your illusion of competence. Try again. Lose again. Each time, the financial buffer prevents the psychological update that should happen. You're like a video game character playing with infinite lives. No real learning occurs because there's no real consequence. This is why wealthy people often have terrible investment portfolios outside their primary wealth source. They're good at one thing. They think they're good at everything. They diversify into businesses they don't understand, asset classes they can't evaluate, partnerships with people they can't properly vet. And because they have capital, these mistakes don't immediately sink them. They persist in error longer than a poor person could. Their wealth funds their own incompetence until suddenly it doesn't, and they're shocked. How did I lose everything? You didn't lose everything. You spent 20 years learning nothing because you could afford to. Look at the long-term studies on wealthy families. 70% lose their wealth by the second generation, 90% by the third. This isn't because the kids are lazy. It's because wealth transferred without competence transferred is a time bomb. The first generation built skills in the market. The second generation inherits wealth, but not the competence that created it. They operate inside the competence illusion matrix. They think having money means understanding money. It doesn't. It means having money. Understanding is earned through failure and iteration, and wealth often prevents both. The way out: radical intellectual honesty. Build a circle of competence document. Literally write down, I am competent at X. I am learning Y. I know nothing about Z. Update it quarterly. Be brutal. Then create a rule. For any decision involving significant resources outside your circle of competence, you must consult someone inside theirs. Not for permission, for education. Buffett and Munger have done this for 60 years. Buffett doesn't invest in tech because he admits he doesn't understand it. Not because tech is bad, because it's outside his circle. That's not limitation, that's wisdom. The smartest thing you can say is I don't know. The dumbest thing you can do is pretend you do. Your ego will hate this. Let it. Your bank account will thank you. And more importantly, your long-term psychological health will thank you. Because the competence illusion matrix doesn't just cost money, it costs reality. And reality is the only operating system that matters. In engineering, before you add weight to a structure, you test its load-bearing capacity. Can the foundation support it? Are the beams properly reinforced? Will the stress distribute evenly or create fracture points? You don't just pile weight on and hope. That's how buildings collapse. That's how people collapse too. Wealth is weight, massive weight. And most people treat it like winning, not like load. They stack it on their existing psychological structure without testing whether that structure can hold. Then, they wonder why they're cracking, why their relationships are failing, why they're anxious despite security, why they feel more trapped with options than they did with constraints. It's not the wealth, it's the structural integrity underneath it. MIT did a study in 2017 tracking startup founders who achieved successful exits. They measured psychological outcomes at intervals, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, post-liquidity event. The findings were striking. Founders with pre-existing practices, therapy, meditation, strong relationships, clear values, showed improved well-being post-exit. Founders without these structural supports showed deteriorating mental health despite increased wealth. Same money, different infrastructure, different outcomes. Your psychological structure has load-bearing walls.
These are non-negotiable elements that keep you stable. Identity independent of achievement. Relationships based on genuine connection. Purpose beyond resource accumulation. Daily practices that ground you. If these walls are weak, wealth will crack them. Not because wealth is destructive, because weight reveals weakness. The fissure was always there. Money just applied enough pressure to expose it. Think of Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, he's a case study in structural stress testing. Multiple companies, billions in net worth, constant public pressure. Why hasn't he collapsed? Not because he's superhuman, because he's built structural reinforcement most people ignore. He's on record sleeping on Tesla factory floors during production crises, not because he's a workaholic, because he's maintaining direct connection to his mission's reality. He's not managing from a yacht. He's staying gravitationally close to the work. That's structural integrity. He's also known for brutal honesty about his mental health struggles. Doesn't hide them, doesn't pretend. That's load recognition. He knows the weight he's carrying and doesn't pretend it's light. Contrast with founders who exit, disappear, and return broken. They thought wealth was the destination. Turns out it was pressure they weren't built to handle. They had financial intelligence, but no structural psychology. They could make money, but not carry it. The weight crushed them. Here's what most people miss. You can engineer psychological load capacity. It's not fixed. You can build it. But you have to build it before you need it. Athletes don't wait until game day to train. They over-prepare. They build capacity that exceeds expected load. So when the pressure comes, they're structurally ready. Wealthy people who thrive do the same thing psychologically. They're not tougher, they're better engineered. The way out? Stress test yourself before wealth arrives. Deliberately put yourself in situations that expose your structural weaknesses. Take cold showers, fast occasionally. Practice saying no to things you want, not because these things matter, because they reveal where you're structurally weak. Where does your discipline break? Where does your identity fragment under pressure? Where do you compromise your values when tested? Find those fracture points now. Reinforce them. Build practices around them. Then, when wealth arrives, when real pressure comes, you're not discovering your weaknesses in crisis.
You're operating from a foundation you've already tested and reinforced. This isn't paranoia, it's engineering. And you're not building a building, you're building a life that can carry the weight of everything you're trying to create. The gravitational field is real. The physics are undefeated. Wealth will warp everything around you. But physics works both ways. If you build enough density at your core, identity, purpose, relationships, competence, structure, you don't collapse under your own gravity. You become a star, a stable system generating light and heat, pulling things toward you, not because you're grasping, but because you're massive in the way that matters. Psychologically dense, emotionally compressed, structurally sound. The door is open. The wealth is coming or already here. The only question is, are you built to carry it? Not morally, structurally. Because the money doesn't care about your intentions. Physics doesn't care about your dreams. Weight cares about foundation. Pressure cares about integrity. Gravity cares about density. And if you're not built right, you won't fail because you're bad. You'll fail because you're weak. And weakness under weight isn't a character flaw. It's an engineering problem. So engineer yourself. Now. Not when the money comes. Not when the pressure's on. Not when you're already cracking. Now. While you're still building. While you can still choose to reinforce before you need to. The people who make it, who really make it, aren't smarter. They're structurally superior. They built themselves to carry weight before weight arrived. They tested their foundation in small fires so they wouldn't discover its limits in the inferno. They knew something everyone else learns too late. The wealth isn't the prize. The person you become to carry it is. Build that person. Build them dense. Build them true. Build them now. The money will find you. The only question is whether you'll be ready when it does.